Well, we're back talking about a sore subject after DeSean Jackson and LeSean McCoy decided to bring up Chip Kelly, although some of the details on how he treated players is wild. Plus, how close was Brandon Graham to being traded? And also, in present day, the coordinators finally spoke to the media, and now it's fair to say the excitement is through the roof. However, who is Fangio's surprising favorite at linebacker? Let's talk about it, but first, let's run it. Alright, how's everybody doing? Reminder, I'm going to be giving away a jersey to one of my subscribers, so make sure to get in on the giveaway. By the way, more details in the comments if you haven't already entered. But let's get into this whole D-Jack, Shady, and Chip beef. And in case you somehow missed it, DeSean Jackson and LeSean McCoy started their own podcast called The 2510 Show, which is not really a surprise, but they decided to rehash all the issues with Chip Kelly, along with exposing some of the other truths that people may not have known. Because we all remember how bad Chip was, since he ended up trading LeSean McCoy for Kiko Alonso, on top of deciding to swap Nick Foles and some picks for the unproven and often injured Sam Bradford. Oh yeah, and for some reason also not offering a contract to Jeremy Maclin despite him proving himself in Philly.
I was way off.
The flip side to that argument is, would the Eagles have won a Super Bowl if Chip hadn't done that? No, I'm not saying any of his moves were good, but it's like, the butterfly effect and all that, who knows? However, it's the way Kelly dealt with the players that frustrated D-Jack and Shady the most, saying Chip forced cornerback Rock Carmichael to cut his hair, telling him, I want you to be more presentable and to get a haircut like LeSean.
Uh-oh, somebody's turbulence!
Ultimately, like D-Jack said, it really just came down to a control issue for Kelly, as he made players wear heart monitors, pee in a cup to test hydration daily, and also wear sleep monitors at night to make sure they were getting enough rest. And for some reason, he didn't allow them to wear black socks, listen to their own music in the locker room, or even drive themselves to the games. Yet despite how bad all that may have been, at least he didn't trade away Brandon Graham.
I promise when I came here, right, that was part of the deal. I get the whole operation. So they let him trade me, right? Because BG had the same issue. They didn't trade BG. The owner stepped in and said, no, that's enough.
Let's just say thank goodness that didn't happen. I know we give everyone criticism at times, and it's totally warranted. But like I talked about on the last video, Jeffrey Lurie deserves a ton of credit for being an owner who learns from his mistakes and at least knows when it's time to step in and say enough is enough. Obviously, this past season was kind of a given, especially after losing 6 of the last 7 games and falling completely apart in the playoffs. And we'll get to the offense in a second. However, it was very reassuring finally getting to hear from new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio about how things will be different when the team faces adversity.
When things aren't going good, you need to go back to basics. I'll tell the players early in camp that if we're struggling, don't expect me to magically scheme our way out of it during a game. We're going back to basics, and we're going to call the things that we've been practicing since day one, and we got to fight our way out of it. And if you don't have that foundation and you're always grabbing for the perfect call, you'll be okay for a little bit, but eventually you're going to get gashed.
Let me just caution and say that Fangio's not saying, oh my gosh, we're just giving up the middle of the field, we'll just let them keep doing it. It's more so that, yes, adjustments are going to be made, but the players are going to be confident for once. Finally, a guy they can trust as a defensive coordinator. Because first off, this is one of the sharpest defensive minds. I mean, you know that, I know that, and probably most importantly, the players know that. So it's highly unlikely that there's a lack of trust there with the new guys. And yes, I realize the Miami reports of players being unhappy with Fangio pushing the limits on practices and hours from the players, so sure, he can be a little old school. But honestly, that's exactly what this team needs, especially after last year. As Fangio mentioned, specifically getting Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter ready to potentially play increased snaps and be ready to contribute at all times. By the way, in case you were wondering whose idea it was to host a mandatory minicamp for the first time since Doug Peterson was at the helm, it's fair to say that was the DC.
I'll let Nick answer that for you.
You think players can take that the wrong way?
Take what?
Take the pushing and
Not, again, within reason. I'm not proposing we go 2-a-days.
That may feel like a minor thing, but I'd argue it's much bigger. Because the question has always been, will Sirianni give up control, or will he be able to change some things? And seeing how the Eagles under Sirianni have practiced some of the fewest amounts among teams, it's telling that he'd be down to switch things up. Personally, this is fantastic and really what you want to see because, like we all know, it takes a while to implement new schemes. Plus, Fangio's got a lot planned for the defensive unit so that we don't experience the same issues as last year.
What we'll eventually do is learn what our guys are best at. So I like to throw a lot at them early because I think one of the worst things you can do is come week 3, week 5, man, we could really use this scheme, but it hadn't been introduced to the players yet. Whereas if you introduced it to them in training camp and worked on it, when you pull it back out 3-4 weeks later, there's recall. So we'll throw a lot at them in training camp to see what best fits for them, what they're good at, and then try and whittle it down. but always keeping some stuff in the bank in case we need it at some point during the season.
Well, there you go. If there was any doubt or curiosity about what Fangio brings to the defense or what'll be different, it's that right there. Seriously, I'll be surprised if we hear any more of the coaches didn't put us in position to make plays quotes. Anyway, how are y'all feeling after hearing from the mastermind himself? Also, the other interesting part to bring up from Fangio's presser was the comment about linebackers, because after all, that's definitely one of the questionable areas on the defense.
Well, when you say linebacker, I think inside linebackers. Okay? I think they're off to a good start. You know, we've got Baun here who's played a little bit of inside linebacker in New Orleans. He really didn't play a whole lot of defense there, but he was inside some, more outside. We think he can play inside, and I have not seen anything so far that says otherwise. Obviously, we got Devin here from Tampa. You guys are well aware of him. He had a great career going, had a down year last year for whatever reason. You know, we hope to get him back to where he was. You know, Nakobe's on the mend from his injuries last year. Who am I forgetting here? Keep going.
There's Trotter.
Yeah, Trotter's got to come in and join the fray, and let's see what he has. And Burks, too, you know, he's been a veteran backup. He's in the hunt, too. So, you know, we don't have anybody established as per se an Eagle, but we've got guys to work with, and we're happy with the group so far.
Okay, I'm curious, but did anyone notice how quickly Fangio brought up linebacker Zack Baun? Sure, maybe it was just random at who he decided to reference first. However, the fact that he was so quick and able to speak on his ability and impact makes me think it's a very realistic possibility that Baun ends up starting, which shouldn't be a total shock, quite honestly. Because remember, Howie Roseman already admitted Baun as being one of the earliest targets for the Eagles based on Fangio's recommendation, thanks to his extreme versatility as a linebacker, pass rusher, and terrific teammate inside the locker room. Of course, it's worth noting that Baun has played over 2/3 of his snaps lined up outside the tackle. Yet I don't think it'd be a stretch for him to move inside based on his limited action and, most importantly, Fangio's recommendation. Although I also understand some doubt because the constant comparisons of Baun being able to be utilized like Andrew Van Ginkel was in Miami are endless. Plus, Cam Jurgens even said previously in New Orleans that Baun is very underrated, especially in the pass rush, and can make an impact if given the chance. So I don't know, what do y'all think? Do you see Baun as more of a rotational pass rusher who'd back up Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat? Or is he actually going to start over Nakobe Dean? Like, it wouldn't be the first time Nakobe's been usurped by a former Wisconsin linebacker. Obviously, we all remember TJ Edwards and the glaring mistake to let him walk there, but Baun is also really good friends with Edwards, with the two working out together in the offseasons, even saying he's gotten some tips from TJ recently. By the way, I think it's worth noting and bringing up again, but just because Baun has worked out primarily as an edge player does not mean that he can't be an off-ball linebacker. Because in case you don't recall or weren't aware, Baun was labeled by draft analyst Dane Brugel as a first-round talent back in 2020, with a motor and athleticism projecting to a future successful off-ball linebacker. However, having said all that, yes, training camp and the preseason is so far off, and who knows, maybe Nakobe Dean does end up being the starter. But I'm just saying, based on Fangio's comments, I'm kind of questioning now if he's going to end up being the starter. Anyway, having said all that and looking into it further, who are your favorites to be the two starting linebackers? Yes, for the record, I'm going to give Devin White the nod, because even though he didn't have the best season, dude's on a mission and he's proven he can be really good, whereas some of the other guys are still trying to find it. But all right, let's get into the offense though. After Kellen Moore has taken in a few team sessions and with the ridiculous addition of Saquon Barkley to the offense, I know we all can't wait for the season to start. Yet much like Fangio and very much unlike the Sirianni BJ offense, Moore is a breath of fresh air.
I don't think I'm stuck in this is the one way of doing things. My dad was a high school coach. I was fortunate to play in college for Chris Peterson, who was a really phenomenal coach at Boise State. Through my NFL journey, I've been with a bunch of head coaches, whether I was a player or a coach. And so you take different examples from each and every one of those guys. And so you're continuing to evolve as a coach, just like our systems continue to evolve. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we just embrace that, we're constantly trying to find what's the next element, what's the new thing, what's something that can give us an advantage. And I think that's the most important aspect of this thing.
I'm not going to lie, that is such a great thing to hear. Like, you mean we won't line up in the gun 700 times and call an absurd amount of screenplays even though they're not working? Thank you. That is literally all I care about. Well, or mostly. Obviously, we need them to prove it to us more than show us, which I'm confident we're going to get. But I'm also just loving the ideas for handling pressure.
There's a lot of different things we can do, but just making sure it's clean, effective, and as you build it, you got to continue to evolve. And so that, 1 week, maybe your answer is a certain play, and then maybe the next week you got to make the adjustment off of that. And so that's, I think, the continuous evolution through the season. There's going to be different challenges each and every week. We're going to walk into a room, and deal with the blitz protection, and we're going to look at it, and there's going to be a couple challenges each and every week. That's what these defense do. They're really good. They scheme you up. They give you a lot of challenges, and so you're continuing to find, okay, what's the next tool that we can use? What's the next tool that we can use while still keeping it clean for the quarterback so that he knows exactly what he needs and he can handle it accordingly.
By the way, shout out to A Bite of Life for counting 83 times that Kellen Moore said process during the presser. I mean, it's no reason, or I guess no surprise, why him and Sirianni get along. In all seriousness, though, this is fantastic. Kellen Moore systems ask a ton from the quarterback, but they can also really help to alleviate pressure and provide quick outs for Jalen. So overall, I wouldn't say anything is wild in Kellen's presser as much as in Fangio's. However, as long as Sirianni stays clear of the offense, we're going to be fine. Oh yeah, and then lastly, a little fun because the team had a competition between Sidney Brown and Kenny Gainwell on who could hold the weight the longest.
Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah.
See if you can let go and catch it before it drops. One minute. Hey, rep for rep. Rep for rep. Hey, rep for rep. Kenny. Go ahead, drop Kenny. Bro, let's not play it. Let's go lock it in. City, all right? Minute and a half. Here we go. They go grab the ref now. Not you anymore. Here we go. That left hand. That left hand. That left hand. We see it. Uh-oh. Hey, no, you say no. You better not drop.
That's awesome, and I love to see the energy from the squad. Also, the ACL looks perfectly fine to me for Sidney Brown. Yes, that was sarcasm. I realize he didn't have to use his knee for that lift. However, it's just promising to see the progress Sidney's making and definitely looking like he's going to be ready by the start of the regular season, which I know is what he's already said, but the more clips popping up seem to definitely confirm it. All I know is the season can't get here fast enough, and we're only in May. This has been Philly Special.